Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. Welcome back. We're going to be reading the last section, which is also the last story in chapter 10 in Sacred Contracts, written by Carolyn Myss. This particular chapter, if you haven't caught the previous videos for chapter 10, are stories using a working chart. So that's different from the wheel. And we've read a story. We've read two stories so far. Carl's story, and that one was focused solely on, I believe it was relationship. It was a relationship chart. Then we read Trevor's story, which was a career chart. And now we're going to read Faye's story, which is a story of using a working chart for health and healing. So first we're going to read a little bit of a story about Faye, and then we're going to briefly go through each one of her houses and archetypes and how each one plays a role in her health and healing chart. Because remember, when you're using a working chart, even though we have certain categories like love and relationships and money and ego, you're focusing anything that you're relating to the archetype to that part of your life, whether it's your relationship, money, career, finances. I think that's another form of money, health and well-being, that sort of thing. Whatever you're doing with your working chart, that's where your thought process is going to be when you're looking through each of the archetypes and how they play into what is going on in your life. All right, so Faye's story of health and healing. Illness can sometimes serve as a time out from our commitments in life, a chance to regroup and reevaluate where we are headed. Now 46, Faye had dedicated her life to environmental causes since graduating from college at age 21. Although Faye loved her work as an administrator for a major nonprofit environmental organization and felt that it was beneficial to the world community, she went about her job in a military fashion. She hated the people who hurt the environment and wanted to destroy them on almost a physical level. Nobody else in the organization shared or endorsed Faye's fanaticism, and this lack of recognition by her peers added to her frustration. She felt that she never accomplished enough in defense of the environment, and that she had somehow failed to inspire her coworkers to rise to her pitch of fury. Over the last 12 years of her life, Faye had also suffered from crippling depression and chronic fatigue syndrome. The combination of these two disorders left her unable to stay employed for more than 2 years at a time. And at one point, she went on disability for 9 months. Faye's uncompromising militaristic attitude and her frustration with her colleagues clearly had contributed to her depression and the physical maladies that derived from it. Faye had been on medication since her depression began. Her health disorders also led to the dissolution of her marriage and difficulties with several family members, who said withdrew from her because they felt that she was looking for caretakers, and they did not want to be responsible for supporting her. Now Faye wanted to get off her medication and find an alternative method for coping with her depression. She also wanted to heal from chronic fatigue, but believed that her depression was the underlying reason for her exhaustion. Years of therapy had made her suspicious of conventional self-examination, yet she was willing to cast a working chart. Her aim was to gain insights into the root cause of her depression and into how to proceed with her healing process. Faye needed to ask herself if she saw any benefits to remaining ill. Many people unconsciously build their lifestyles around their illness, and as a result, the prospect of healing holds the same threat as the prospect of symbolically losing their home. That is very true. I think I have said that in a previous video that, sorry, my daughter's home, she's playing a game, but a lot of people get attached to their illness and they don't realize it, and they make it a very big part of who they are. And many of them would say if there was a cure, they would take it. But deep down inside, sometimes I wonder If somebody said, okay, we found a cure for X, Y, and Z, and they offer it to those people, would they have to think it through before they decided to go ahead with it? It becomes so much like a part of you, even something that you don't want, even something that you wish would go away. Sometimes it can become so ingrained in who you are and how you live your life and how you look at yourself, and it just becomes a part of you. That can be a really tough thing to do, especially with mental health issues. It just becomes a part of you, and you almost don't even know what it would be like to not have those things. And it is a scary prospect. It is a scary thought. Many people, I already read that. And as a result, the prospect of healing, I already read that too. Yeah. In becoming comfortable with pain, in effect, you take up residence in a pill bottle. As with Trevor and Carl, Faye's answers sometimes seem to contradict each other, but the relationship of intention to those contradictions alerts you to an important energy. Faye's open frame of mind helped her enormously in constructing an overview of her illness that incorporated her work and her background, her strengths and her fears. Her chart is shown in figure 12, and that's on the next page. So we're going to start with her first house, which is the ego and personality, where she placed the archetype of servant. Faye interpreted the servant in her first house as symbolic of the fact that, because she was passionately involved with healing the environment, she had to wear the illness of the environment on her person. In interpreting her chart, she recognized her belief that, had she given the impression of being more buoyant and attractive, no one would take her commitment to her work seriously. I think I was afraid to appear too glamorous because glamour and nature do not go together. I had to look intense and committed to educating people on how toxic the world was becoming. Faye said that she would have to rethink her self-image as it related to her work. She chose the phrase, nature is beautiful, as a reminder. And if you didn't catch the previous stories, what she's doing with this working chart is creating a mantra or a phrase for each house. And the author suggests writing each phrase down for every house, putting it on an index card and keeping it with you in your purse, in your pocket, your backpack, whatever it may be. So she chose the mantra, nature is beautiful. I am definitely a walking contradiction then, because I can go for a hike with makeup and nicer clothes on, not super nice, but you know, I'm not all, I don't know. I like to kind of always put myself together, and especially if it's an impromptu hike, which I've done so many times on a long weekend with my husband. If we're staying somewhere that's near the forest or something, it's like, oh, there's a trail, let's go. And I may not be dressed for it, but it might look weird, but it doesn't matter, right? But that's funny that she cared so much about, you know, almost blending into nature by just putting on that persona for herself and wearing that for herself. That's very powerful. All right, the second house, life values. She chose the friend archetype. The association that immediately comes to mind with my friend archetype and my health experience, said Faye, is that I have always believed that my spirit was my best friend, but my body served little role in enhancing my relationships. I am a good friend to people. I am a good listener, and I am loyal and trustworthy and always ready to support my friends. Having said that, Faye admitted that she had not treated her body and spirit in the same way in recent years. I feel that my body somehow has betrayed me. It has become a toxic environment, and I am angry with it. In response to that realization, Faye chose respect this friend as her key phrase for the second house. Third house, where the self-expression and siblings lie. She chose the prostitute. The prostitute in Faye's house of self-expression represented anger. Faye's motivation to join the environmental movement was the anger she felt toward large corporations, industry, and society that turned a blind eye to the destruction of nature for the sake of profit. Righteous anger was healthy anger to me back then. I felt immune to the consequences of this anger because it was expressed on behalf of a worthy cause. But obviously, no anger is healthy, nor is it inspiring. Faye had to come to this realization long before this chart. But upon seeing the prostitute on this house, she commented that she had never ceased to feel that way toward the industrial world. I think I have a lot to heal in this house, she said. And toward that goal, Faye chose release as her mantra. I like that. Now the fourth house, which is where home lies, she chose the messenger. This illness has kept me at home, said Faye. And given this archetype, I need to find the message not just in the illness, but in my having to stay at home as well. In our discussion of that point, Faye said that she would have to give thought as to how she was spending her time at home. When you are in depression and have chronic fatigue, you just sit around all day, and in time, feeling sorry for yourself becomes natural. My husband was great at helping me in the beginning, but then I started to reconcile myself to the idea that this exhausted state was going to be permanent. That's when our relationship started to disintegrate. Faye said that she would make a positive effort to use her time at home as productively as possible. The biggest obstacle for me has been that staying at home made me feel useless. Unless I was out in the field, I was unable to do anything of value. The messenger on this house inspired Faye to think about finding alternative ways of communicating her work from where she was. Just the thought of going back to work again, of finding that I can do something of value that continues my work from home, makes me feel alive again. Faye took her key phrase for this house from the song in the movie Snow White, hi ho, it's home from work we go, saying that introducing humor into her attitude would not be a bad idea. And the fifth house, where our creativity and good fortune lies. And again, I have a hanger that's bugging me, sorry. She chose the sage, and it just hit that, sorry, again. Faye was strongly drawn to the sage archetype. She had an obvious love for the wisdom of great thinkers and felt spiritually nurtured by their insights. My association with the sage in this house is that I need to make wiser choices about how I have been living and how sincerely I have been working to heal. I have to give some serious thought to how honest I am with myself. Yeah. Faye said that because she felt that she was on the right side of the right cause, she was never wrong about her beliefs and judgments of others. In looking at the significance of this house, Faye said, I have fallen out of touch with loving life. I am living on what's left from yesterday. I need to have a love affair with life again. In support of her sage archetype, Faye chose love as her mantra. And the sixth house, where occupation and health lies, she chose the saboteur. Faye took her time coming up with a response for this archetype in her sixth house. Finally, she said, I think I have been sabotaging my healing because I want people to acknowledge how much I have put into my work. It's not easy to produce your accomplishments for people. I can tell them I've given a talk here and there, but that doesn't mean much to anyone. This particular archetypal connection was like a depth charge, causing Faye to think about whether she was trying to make some of her friends and family, as well as her ex-husband, feel guilty for not having taken her more seriously. Therefore, she chose be honest, be wise as her guiding mantra. And the seventh house, where marriage and relationships are, she chose the innocent child. Faye focused on partnership and specifically that she was in a partnership with her illness. This interpretation allowed her to change the terms of the partnership, indeed, to break it off entirely. I am realizing that we become intimately involved with our illness. We refer to it as my illness, giving it a very personal status in our life. Dissolving this partnership represents my becoming impersonal and distant, withdrawing my emotions from this experience, and the very thought of that is empowering. Since Faye's goal was now to end her relationship with her illness, divorce became her seventh house mantra. The eighth house were other people's resources, and she chose environmentalist. The environmentalist archetype is a modern extension of the steward, who in ancient times was charged with protecting and conserving an estate. Native Americans and other indigenous peoples have expanded that concept to cover the entire natural environment in which they live, And today, environmentalists apply the same sense to the earth as a whole. The environmentalist in her 8th house inspired Faye to consider opening herself to her friends and to the suggestions and help they had offered her in the past few years that she had turned down. I lost my belief that anything could make a difference, she said, which is why I finally gave in to conventional medication. This was a very difficult decision for me because using drugs represented everything that I have worked against. But I had gotten to the point where I felt that I didn't have much choice. Faye said that in addition to reconnecting with her friend's loving advice, she would once again investigate the resources in the field of alternative health. She wanted to remain in the phrase that made up her 8th house, which is wide open. The 9th house, spirituality, that's where spirituality lies, and she chose the lover/romantic. Faye was drawn to the lover/romantic archetype because being romantic balanced her environmentalist. I would have told someone in my situation that no matter what you have to go through, you need love to heal, because that's the way of the spirit. She said by way of interpreting this archetype in this house, I need to return to that truth. As a way of connecting this archetype with her spiritual impulses, she chose God is love as her guide for this house. The 10th house, where the highest potential lies, and she chose the prostitute. Faye showed great imagination with her interpretation of this archetype. I think that I will compromise my highest potential if I don't make a conscious effort to heal my attitudes and climb out of my reservoir of self-pity. I will have sold out my dreams and ambitions because the outcomes I had anticipated when I was younger did not happen as soon or as dramatically as I wanted them to happen. Faye also needed to rethink the meaning of her highest potential. Basing its definition only on what she did for a living, she realized, was not good enough and not God enough. A job is my ego's highest potential. I don't know what my soul's is, but I think I need to let go of my definition of highest potential and see what unfolds. For her guiding mantra, Faye chose emptiness because it reminded her to clear out any negative thoughts or feelings immediately. And I forgot to share her chart with you. I don't know how much you want to see these or need to see them, but I shared all the other ones. So there is Faye's chart on health and healing. Now we've got the 11th house, which is our relationship to the world, and she chose the martyr. Well, well, Faye said, as we discussed her martyr. Who would have thought I would see the world through the eyes of a martyr? She laughed and said it was almost too obvious. I always associated martyrs with causes. Where there was a worthy cause, there had to be a mighty martyr. Or what else could possibly sustain the cause? Faye said that she chose the image because she saw the world as a suffering ill being, then paused and added, I think that somewhere in me is the belief that I have to suffer for the cause. This archetype goes along with my belief that you have to look like an earthy environmentalist in order to be taken seriously. I do understand what she's saying. People are very judgmental and they're very quick to assume things. And if you had an environmentalist come out with the hair and the nails and the makeup and the clothes and the jewelry, she's probably right. They probably would not have taken her seriously. They probably would have been more busy paying attention to that rather than the cause that she really was truly obviously passionate about. So I do understand that. We're always so worried about what people think, and it's their assumptions and their judgments that ultimately rule our lives. And we really need to get away from that because no one's living that life but you. And at the end of the day, that's just as simple as it is, as difficult as it is, but also as simple as it is. I could never show up at a rally in heels and makeup. I went in sandals and a t-shirt. Faye said that her key phrase for healing this part of her psyche would be no need, as in no need to be a martyr just to help the cause. And the last house, which is the 12th house, where the unconscious lies, she chose heroine. Faye chose the heroine as one of her archetypes because she always wanted to champion a cause. As a child, she used to fantasize a great deal about who she would like to be and what it would feel like to be able and be sure of herself. I think that I need this type of recognition more than I care to admit. I have to give some thought to how much of my depression might be connected to my feeling that I have failed as a heroine. I have not succeeded in championing a cause, and I am not well known for my work. Even as I say this, I can feel that dark weight that fills my mind at night when I think about the fact that I've spent another day of my life doing nothing. This could be the failure that then began my cycle with depression. Faye chose the phrase, guide me, for this house, because releasing her own plans and ambitions into the hands of heaven felt like the most powerful act she could do in support of her healing and her life. As a result of this chart work, Faye decided to return to work, beginning with what she could do while she was at home. She realized that she had lost her passion not just for doing her work, but for everything. I have to work at believing that everything a person does to help a cause as a positive contribution. Is a positive contribution, she concluded. I think I am going to make my spiritual path the study of the invisible self. This exercise has made me consider that perhaps I've been sabotaging my healing process out of anger at lack of recognition of my efforts. Though I am not going to say that this is the whole cause, but I do realize now that my attitude has not been an asset to my recovery. And then we have just a little closing paragraph down here. The choice is yours. That's what it's titled. Using these working charts to establish a system of guidance helps you explore your life through the symbolic realm. Interpreting archetypal information is like putting on a pair of glasses that brings everything into focus, allowing you to recognize your opportunities, your higher potential, and your mission. This clarity does not in itself provide courage. The choice to take action or not is always yours. You may or may not want to remind yourself of the archetypal significance of why a relationship ended, or why you struggle with self-esteem. Still, you now have the option. You can cast a working chart. You can open yourself to inner guidance. The choice is yours, and everything in life ultimately comes down to choice. I think it also comes down to your perspective too. Do you find a silver lining in every cloud, even in the worst cloud? There's always a silver lining, even if it sounds like the tiniest, most ridiculous thing. Life is not only your choices, but also your view of things, your perspective on things, and your attitude on things. And it is not anyone else's responsibility to ensure that you're happy or that you're secure. None of it. It's all up to you. It's all done within, really and truly. It took me so long to realize that. Yeah, I just had to take a deep sigh because it really did. I'm 43. Probably in my late 30s is when I really came to the understanding of so many things. And I know that everything happens when it's meant to. I know that we become aware of things when the timing is right. Those things find you. But I often say, I wish that I would have realized these things when I was younger. I wish that I would have believed this, that, or the other thing when I was younger. And then I just remind myself, everything is in divine time. Everything is in the perfect time. You're not behind. You're not ahead. You're not stagnant. Even when you feel like you are, you're right where you should be, wherever you are. And that's for anybody out there. I'm not just talking about myself. That's for all of us. So we're finally going to be on our last chapter. I'm liking this book, but I'm ready to, kind of put it into action. And I'm the kind of person that normally I like to literally and figuratively work on things as I go. But with this one, I did not make it past figuring out my archetypes. And I wanted to finish this book before I did that because it's once. You cast your chart once and that's it. Now that's different than the working chart. And I'm still trying to figure that out. What's the difference? I'm going to have to look that up. But yeah, it's a commitment and I want to do it right. And I want to be really brutally honest with myself and see it all. So you know, wherever you are with yours, or if you've not done it yet, totally fine. So the last chapter is Healing Challenges of the Archetypal Wheel. And it's really not that long because, as I've showed you previously, if you've seen, this is all appendix right here, which I've read to you. This is all appendix except for, this is the glossary. This is the appendix with all of our definitions. This is chapter 11. So yeah, we're almost done with the book, which I'm really excited for. So we'll start chapter 11 in the next video. And yeah, as always and as usual, take care of yourself, take care of those around you until I see you again. I love you all very much. I love doing these, and I hope that you're enjoying this book. I hope you're learning something. And yeah, I will see you again for the last first section of the last chapter in this book. Take care until then. Bye-bye.